Alright. Looks like everybody's here. How are we all today? We ready to rock and roll in some New World? I am ready to rock and roll in some New World. First things first, though. Gotta find... There we go. Gotta find my thumbnail. Gotta do my maintenance on the channel. Just make sure everything is set properly. Alright, New World it is. Save that bad boy. And let's get in here. Alright. So today, just like with every day, we need to go through and get our daily stuff done and try and up our gear score here a little bit. Want to get our purple chests that we can get, our 3 daily purple chests. We want to open those bad boys up. Hey! Nice amulet with strength, empower, health, and thrust protection. That's actually pretty good. That might be better than what I'm currently wearing. Ooh, and a helm. Enchanted ward. Venturing claw shot refreshing. So that venturing... Yo, what's up, Quizza? How are you today? Go ahead and get rid of that. And then let's see, what do we have? What is this? An amulet. What do we have for an amulet right now? Fortified and health. This is empowered health thrust protection. Honestly, I think it's just best to go ahead and throw that on there. I think it's best just to throw that bad boy on there. Alright. Let's get making some tea and waiting for the snow. It's snowed here earlier today. Snowed here a couple of days ago. It is colder than all hell here right now. Like freezing ass cold. I am super bundled up. I'm not digging it. Making my hands hurt. That's alright. Yeah. Well, let's, the Serologist. That's a funny name. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the channel, Sarah. How are you? Are you an ologist of something? What are you an ologist of? Whoops. What I want to do here is I want to head on down to the PvP zone. But I just want to head down here and gain up some coins and have a little fun. Get back into things a little bit. I didn't play it all yesterday. Obviously, I didn't stream yesterday. Can never like summer even if they keep me at a gun. Oh, you know what? I much prefer summer to winter. That's because I'm from the desert and I don't like the snow. I like my desert. I like The empty open spaces. That's what I like. Let's get in here. Get into this PvP zone and go have us some fun. Go have us a good friggin' time. This person gonna try and fight me. Yeah! They got themselves a turkey mount. I think that's great. I think that's really freaking hilarious. Okay. Well, that thing is broken. So I think I'm gonna get this chest for free. Oh, nope. Yeah, you did. Ooh. And you give me 6 cursed coins. I do believe this person is attacking me. See, now why you gotta go do that? Might be trapped in here. Did I trap myself in a hole? I did trap myself in a hole. That's bad. Well, that's really obnoxious. That's really obnoxious. I should have tried to fight that person, maybe. But I don't have the skills required to chase a fire staff. So there's not really much value in trying to chase them. It's better just to try and escape to a position. Ah, yes, this is the new world from Amazon Games, Quizzo. Now called New World Aeternum. Since they sort of re-released for consoles. The gameplay itself is fun. The systems in this game are fairly broken. And the reason that the systems in this game are fairly broken is for the same reason that pretty much every game's systems are broken. And it's that they try to leave too many things possible. And when anything is possible, then only people just get to a point where they only do the thing that they think is the most viable. And that thing is usually to impede the progress of other players. Can I please get mounted, or am I just stuck not being able to mount while I'm in here? Holy crap on a cracker. There need to be things in place, rules in place, that give sort of a push-pull of possibility and negative impact. And if there's not, then a strategy just kind of comes out. And that strategy is usually to just KOS everybody. And to just have, you know, higher power and higher skill than everybody else. And I understand that players of high skill want to be rewarded, right? They want to be better off than players of low skill. But players of low skill are typically only players of low skill because there is a time constraint to their playtime. And if those players cannot succeed in a game, then they will quit. It's not about making sure that players that play all the time or that are more skilled have the ability to express that, and to, just defeat all of their opponents. Um, you want players of lower skill to also have success because it's a video game, right? Um, it's how we kill time. It's something we do for fun, and failing repeatedly isn't fun. I think I am tired of video games. I uninstalled every game on my PC, now filling it with movies. Sometimes you just gotta take a break from video games, Quizzo. That is totally reasonable. Especially because, like I've been saying, video games nowadays feel very job-like. Um, because, again, it's something that you can only succeed in if you put a lot of time and energy and skill and talent into it. Or at least some mixture of those things, right? If you're really skilled or really talented, then maybe it requires a little less time and dedication. Or in the case of a lot of pay-to-win models, a little less money. But if you're not, then it is absolutely a question of time investment. And so these games do just generally start to feel like a job because, you want to play a game for the sake of succeeding at it. You want to quote-unquote win. But these games just aren't designed for everyone to win. They are designed to create an environment where the conditions of victory are predicated on being better than everybody else. And that means that the conditions of victory can only be achieved by a small number of players. And that's not what a video game is, right? Video games are supposed to be fun for everyone. And I think we've sort of lost that in this hobby. Right? We've gotten to a point where we try and make video games too much like real life, where people who spend lots of time or people who spend lots of money, or probably, but I am tired of even single players, which is supposed to be chill. Well, and so I have that problem too, and it's because I don't like single player games, because I like having other people in the world around me. And so it's not that I'm bored of single player games, it's that I want to play multiplayer games, but I'm burnt out on multiplayer games. And so the idea of playing a single player game makes me think, well, if I'm going to play a single player game, I might as well play a multiplayer game, but I don't want to play a multiplayer game, so I don't. But I mean, burnout on hobbies happens to everybody. And that's what this is, right? Video games are a hobby. And so if you're feeling the burnout, then, step back, take a break, watch some movies, binge some TV shows, and if you feel like coming back, you come back, and if you don't, you don't. There's no requirement to play video games. You're not gonna, get kicked out of society if you don't play video games. It is 100% about your enjoyment, and if you are not enjoying it, you should not be playing it. That's why monetization systems based around fear of missing out are so bad for the gaming industry, or so bad for gamers. Is because it keeps us playing, because it's not just about investing money to not miss out, it's also about investing time. And I think that's one of the things about game systems where, people claim it's not pay to win, because everything you can get in the shop you can also get by just playing the game. So you end up driving players who can't or won't spend money to play more hours and to keep them in the game, which kind of turns them into a system of fodder for players who will spend more money but maybe don't have as much time to play. And so it just keeps those players in the world so that those players who spend more money have somebody to play with or someone to prey on in the case of PvP games. Yesterday I was waiting for Delta Force, and today I'm like, meh, I don't want to play anymore. I mean, you might be having a problem with depression too, Wizza. A sort of one of the first signs of depression is to start having difficulty enjoying things that you enjoyed before, right? So hobbies that you enjoyed before. Even if it's just a mild temporary depression. I mean, stuff like that happens to everybody. It may not be long term. It may not be, it may not have anything to do with your video games. It might have to do with other things going on in your life, making you feel guilty for playing video games because maybe you feel like you should be doing something else. Like you should be out there on that hustle trying to make some more money or whatever it is that you feel like you're not doing that you should be doing, and it causes you to feel guilt for having fun. And to that I say, fuck that. Life is about having fun. And if you're enjoying yourself, then you're probably doing what you should be doing. But that is definitely, especially in society today, I mean, we're very conditioned, pretty much all across the globe. I went to the doctors, they asked me to come again in a week. Okay, good. Oh yeah, love getting attacked by 2 people. Looks like they're not going to attack me. Yeah, you gotta use those health benefits if you got them. You have the ability to go see a doctor. You should definitely go see a doctor. And listen to what they have to say. I know it's difficult sometimes, especially if you're not feeling well. A lot of times when we start to not feel well, we start to self-sabotage. And that causes us to feel worse. I know, I do it all the time. I'm really, really bad about self-sabotage. But, when your doctor... Are you in a country with a universal healthcare system? I need to pay for or to get my new glasses. Even that 20% is paid by the government. Hey, well, that's nice. That's real nice. Especially if there are good mental health services included in that. Physical health is not necessarily a solved equation, but, for a really long time in human history, physical health has been a huge priority all over the globe. And so we're pretty good at diagnosing and rectifying, primary physical ailments. And so having access to good mental health care, I think, is pretty important. I guess I do need to go across here. Never noticed that shield before. It's pretty sweet. I do like this shield. Wizard. Also, I saw your stream last night. When I looked at it, it had 17 people watching. Congratulations. That's a heck of a good number there. And freaking congratulations. I'm starting to feel like maybe I should have never stopped playing Once Human. I just can't bring myself to go back and play that game again. That I'm showing dissociative symptoms. More so they will have another doctor to... Oh, that's good. Access to good mental health care is important. And good job for recognizing that you needed to go see somebody. A lot of people would have just struggle bust it. That's not good for you. Yeah, of course. You deserve it. You do a good job. Get on there, you have a good time. Alright, we got 190 coins all gathered up there. Now I'm going to go back out. You just kind of have to go back sometimes out of the zone because it triggers your cursed resources to become regular resources, which means they don't get dropped if you get killed. And that's important. That's very important. Hey, what's up, Charles? I'm doing fantastic. How are you today? Glad to see you. Been a while. Doing good at work like a normal. Figured I would drop in and listen for an hour before I go. Well, nice, nice. My Thanksgiving was really, really cold and really, really boring. Just me and my older brother are here at the house, and the blower motor for our heater is broken. And it's about 26 degrees outside right now. It's super dope. So we've been freezing our nerds off all week. And we got at least another week of super cold weather coming before us. The blower motor was supposed to have been here weeks ago, but whoever was delivering it, I live in a very small house, like, I don't know, 25 foot by 30 foot or something like that, like a really small house. And so they apparently needed a signature for our blower motor. They claim that they were knocking on the door, but unless you just barely tapped on it, there is literally nowhere in my house that I wouldn't be able to hear you from. You know, I hear every time somebody slams a car door outside from basically anywhere in my neighborhood. So they claim to have come and dropped it off twice, but I didn't leave the house on either of those days because, you know, I don't leave the house. And I never heard anybody knock on the door, so I'm pretty angry about it. But it's apparently coming in at some point this coming week. When it does, I'll just do a quick swap on the motor, and then we should have our heater back up and running, which will be fan-freaking-tastic. But other than that, everything's going really well. What about you? How was your Thanksgiving? Just gives you a reason to put on some extra clothing and cuddle up in that fluffy blanket you never use. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's happened. I've got my onesie on. Um, you know, it's all made out of fleece, and I'm tucked up under my comforter. And the only part of me that's actually cold is my hands, because they're the only things outside of my blankets right now, so I can actually play the game. And that's part of why I didn't stream yesterday, was just my hands were cold, and I didn't feel like having them out of my blanket, so I watched TV all day. But yeah, HVAC repairs are always fun. I changed out a capacitor and fan motor a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, it's right up my alley. It's what I was trained for in the Navy. I was an electronics technician for point defense weapon systems like the Sea-Wiz and the RAM system and stuff like that. So taking a motor out and replacing it is pretty easy work for somebody with the right knowledge. So it shouldn't be a problem. The real big problem is it doesn't look like the intake where the fan motor sits, or where the blower fan sits, was set up properly. And so it's just pulling basically all the gunk from inside my house into the blower and into the motor. And so the motor's just super gunked up. I don't know. I need to get in there and do some other stuff to it to make sure that it's all right, but that isn't necessarily right up my alley. So I don't know. Thanksgiving was boring. I haven't done a real Thanksgiving in like 10 years. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Thanksgiving isn't really my holiday. It's nice to get together with family and, you know, have ham and turkey and mashed potatoes and stuff like that. But people get a little too crazy with it for my liking. I'd like to, you know, show up at noon, hang out, get everything all together, you know, have a big old potluck or something for dinner. Hang out until maybe 8 o'clock and then go home and go to sleep. That'd be a good Thanksgiving to me. Instead, in my family, it always turns into like this 3-day ordeal. I love my family, but not for 3 days straight. Trained by the army to be, oh, okay, well, that's fun. I'm not going to think about that, in fact. Not going to think about that at all, actually. So something that I just thought of, because I was thinking back to a message I received by somebody who killed me out here. We've been doing a lot of talking about game theory as it pertains to this game and as it pertains specifically to PvP engagements and repetitive or repeatable PvP engagements in games like this. And especially in full loot games like this, where killing another person. That was a 74 Delta. Ah, okay. We were trained on how to make different chemical agents and also how to protect ourselves from them. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, the wonderful horrors of war. Nothing was more scary to me while I was on deployment in the Navy than prepping for potential chemical attack. Having to learn how to get all the chem suit on and all that stuff. Dum dum. 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 Hee. Oh yeah. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I wasn't talking about I wasn't talking about basic training where we had to actually go through the chamber and get tear gassed. That was an awful experience. Just an absolutely awful experience. But, no, I meant like when we were actually on deployment, we started going through and having drills and procedures and stuff like that for if a chemical weapon was used on the ship. You know, locking down hatches, getting into your chem suit, getting your mask on, all that stuff. You know, because some things are skin contact and some things are inhaled and some things are, you know, just whatever. But of all the potential things that could have happened to the ship, that was the one that freaked me out the most. But yeah, getting tear gas was less than entertaining. Getting OC sprayed was less than entertaining too. On my first ship, when I was on the frigate in Washington State, you know, you have to do your rotation as part of the watch team or whatever, the armed watch team. And in order to do that, you actually have to get sprayed with really, really strong pepper spray. And then you have to go through a series of tests where you basically fight off a bunch of combatants in different scenarios while you're pepper sprayed, because the goal is to prepare yourself. You know, if you're carrying OC and you use it on somebody, there's a very, very good chance you're going to get some in your eyes, right? You can't control the wind, you can't control splash, you can't control a lot of that stuff. And so the goal is to teach you, hey, this is what it feels like. So if you do have to use it and something happens and you get it on you, here's what you're going to do about it. And that was a terrible experience. I was on the USS Ford. I was in Everett. Yeah. I was on the USS Ford in Everett. About, gosh, has it been like 11 years now? What is this person thinking? I was actually there when it was decommissioned. I was on the last crew that ever was stationed on that ship. It was a good crew. I enjoyed those folks. If I had stayed on that ship for my entire first enlistment, I might have re-enlisted. But once I got to the carrier, I was much less inclined. I originally joined the Navy DEP program, graduated on time. I was supposed to do basic AIT in Florida. My first duty station was going to be the USS Abraham Lincoln in Everett. No kidding. No kidding. Oof, that would have been rough. Those boys on the flight line, they work up on the flight deck and do all the aircraft repairs and stuff, put in some work on a carrier. That was a no-joke job. Pulling 12-hour days every day. I honestly got super lucky. I had probably one of the cushiest jobs you could have on the ship. Because as long as our defense weapons were up, nobody really gave a crap what we did. You know, it's just a fairly important thing to have operating when you're out in a potential conflict zone. And so we got a lot of latitude about what we did with our time, as long as our system was up and running and the maintenance was completed. All right. I think I'm probably going to be done with this for just a minute after I get these coins here. What do we got? That'll put us at 450. Let's try and get another 50 so we get up to 500 there. And then we'll go do like an OPR or go do a random dungeon or something like that. That's a lot of peeps. That's a whole lot of peeps. Not going over there. Gonna go around the outside here and just head on up. Not trying to deal with a whole mess of nerds. Not even interested in dealing with that. So, like I was talking about before, we've been talking a lot about game theory. And one of the things that the study that I've looked into most didn't really account for was the potential of losing your points in the future, and the potential of having to interact with multiple different people while gaining those points. So we'll go back, we'll do a quick little refresher on the study that I sort of researched through YouTube. And that study was about how in a situation that's very similar to the situation we have here, and it's called the prisoner's dilemma, but when you're in a situation where you have the ability to cooperate or betray the other party in a scenario, and when things are weighted in such a way that cooperating gives the absolute most benefit, both sides betraying gives the absolute least benefit, and one side betraying and one side cooperating gives more benefit to that side that betrays, then the best option when you're going to be engaging in that scenario over and over and over and over again with the same person, the way to maximize your personal value is to cooperate first and then only betray that person if they betray you. So you want to retaliate against them and then immediately forgive them if they go back to cooperating. And so that also works fairly well in situations like what we're playing here, where we're out here in this open world PvP zone, where if I cooperate with another person, then me and that other person just run around gathering stuff up. And if I betray that person, then I get to steal whatever resources they've been gathering out there. The thing that it doesn't account for is the fact that I am not only engaging with a single person, and also that I don't instantly get my resources, right? I stack those resources up, and I have the potential that in one of my future encounters with one of those different people, because I've been stacking up resources, they could betray me and I could lose everything I had earned up to that point by cooperating and or betraying others around me. And because of this, it actually skews the potential gain of the betrayer, where instead of only gaining more than you would gain if you cooperate as an individual, but less than is available sort of as a whole to the entire system if both of you cooperate. You end up in this position where you're actually taking all of the collective cooperations of a person's past. And so you end up gaining significantly more, especially if that person has okay, so just nobody's coming. I got it. Okay, so we're just gonna go get in there and get everything, huh? That's cool. That's cool. Let's do that. Not sure why we did that, but let's do it anyway. Honestly, I've got the music turned down so far that I don't even know what's this. I hate background music in video games. No, I haven't watched Gladiator 2 yet. It hasn't come out in a way that I can watch it yet. But I will, when it does. I don't do movie theaters. That's a big no-no for me. Thoroughly uninterested. I mean, you are in a normal group expedition instead of mutated, so groups tend to just be nerds. I mean, that's definitely true. The problem is I don't really know these dungeons very well. So I want to learn them. Everybody else is just going ham all the time. And they all went ham, but they don't actually seem like they know what they're doing. Or where the dungeon is going, because nobody understands how to unlock these chests. And nobody understands that you can skip most of the enemies. So I think I'm in a group of people who don't really know the dungeon, but we're just gonna run through it and kill everything all crazy. Which is sort of the least fun possible option. Because then stuff like that happens where I don't have all the aggro. And it just makes life harder. This should be an extremely easy scenario here. But if you don't let me group the melee enemies with the ranged enemies, then what am I supposed to do? I would argue that killing more things and grabbing all the gatherables is more fun than skipping stuff. I would argue that too, except that the rewards of this dungeon, the rewards of all dungeons in this game, are extremely lopsided towards the bosses. So there's very little value in killing the enemies. And so the goal is to gain the rewards, right? Not to kill the enemies. Because we want to have progression. At least that's how I see it, and I think how a lot of people see it. And so if most of the rewards are stacked on the bosses, then all of the enemies just become an obstacle to those rewards that you want to circumvent in whatever way you can. Whether killing them or walking around them, it doesn't really matter. You're just trying to defeat those enemies by getting past them. So, I mean, sure, killing some more enemies could be the most fun. I personally very much enjoy skipping enemies in dungeons. I think it's a lot of fun. I also enjoy fighting enemies in a optimum way. So I just ran in and aggroed all those things, but I was trying to make sure that everything was attacking me. And then I wanted to turn around and run back towards my allies and clump all those archers up. But I can't clump all those archers up because everybody else just ran in and started attacking them. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about grouping in dungeons, is that as a tank, I don't often get to do tankly things because either the content is too easy or everybody else just kind of runs in and starts making things happen all crazy, and then I don't get to do the grouping and the controlling and stuff like that that I enjoy the most about... I don't want to do that. The things that I enjoy the most about tanking in dungeons. So, one of the best gear I've had drop in New World actually dropped from random mobs instead of bosses. That's a fair point, but the thing is that that's all RNG. And so you're optimizing the number of bites at the RNG apple you get. Are we gonna go? Or, oh my gosh, is somebody over here fighting? What in the holy shiznit is going on? I'm on the Pangea server, one of the servers that launched for the new release for the consoles. That's a West Coast server, yeah. So the reason I actually started playing some more New World was the new roadmap that they put out is actually pretty interesting, Charles. They're going to be having seasonal worlds starting in January for their new season. So I'm actually pretty interested to see if that's going to play out a little bit like fantasy version of Once Human, where you're just going to have some different stuff. This one is supposed to be like a PvP always on kind of a world, is what the first seasonal world is supposed to be. But yeah, I don't know exactly how that's going to be structured. We haven't gotten a ton of information about it yet, but I am very interested in seeing how that goes. So I thought I would get, I don't know if you're going to have to make new characters, or are you going to use your other characters? They said that they were going to have some special rewards that you can only get in these seasonal worlds, and then you're going to be able to take those seasonal rewards into your main server, I guess. So yeah, I'm just interested in seeing what that's like. So I'm trying to get this server built, this character built, so that if I do take it into the seasonal world, then you know, I have a character that's already all set to do that in January. Where is everyone? Are we just running around being all crazy? Okay, that's fine. Let's just be totally freaking crazy. Let's not... not use brain cells at all. Hate my teammates. Always and forever. Look at how spread out this fight was. Goodness gracious, y'all. New World Seasonal would be interesting. Hopefully they do seasons better than Once Human is doing right now. I'm on a Manibus hard server right now since it's the only thing besides Evolution's Call. They didn't release any new scenarios. Yeah, I mean, of course they haven't released any new scenarios though. I mean, there's only so many new scenarios that they can be releasing in any given time. I don't have a problem with the cadence of Once Humans releasing. I have a problem with the fact that their core mechanics are extremely underdeveloped. We saw it when they put out the PvP scenario. We saw it when they put out the Way of Winter scenario. Just everything feels less than it could be, and I didn't like that. And they didn't, they're focusing on the mobile release now. That is a terrible idea, and really upsets me. I don't care about the mobile release. That's stupid. Make your PC version better. This boss also lends itself to that same kind of crazy, not paying attention, making the fight really wide open and all over the place kind of playstyle too. And it pisses me off. The beta started a few days back. It's coming out next month. I mean, that's just not even a remotely valuable... There's no value add there at all. And honestly, it kind of makes me feel like the games just kind of go to crap. If you're releasing a mobile release like that and your systems are already as bad as they are, how are you going to make better systems when you have mobile to contend with, you know? I don't know. I don't like it. I think it's a terrible idea. I think that was a very, very bad idea on their part. But I understand why they did it. They're trying to their cadence of releases for cosmetics and the general non-quality of their cosmetics really lend themselves to mobile gaming. And so it's very much just a push into that market where they're just going to make a whole lot more money. And I should have seen it coming. I mean, they always said that they were going to have a mobile release. I thought they were going to do maybe a better job. Then they started putting out just tons and tons and tons of cosmetics all the time, and very much following the mobile garbage game playbook. And that's just kind of the way it is. And I imagine that the same lack of quality is going to go into their remaining systems for any new scenarios that they might put out. We're going to keep getting things where instead of having a legit tower, Way of Winter should have been a legit tower defense game mode. There is absolutely no reason for that game mode to be when you do those purifications, there's no reason for those enemies to come in and spawn inside of your bases. Right? They should spawn outside, and then you should have an opportunity to build a funnel so that you can focus those enemies into a certain position to fight them. They didn't do that. The PvP scenario that they put out was a great idea. The execution was absolute trash because there was no intercepting, there was no vehicle play, there was none of that. So that was just a super bad execution. And my concern is we're just going to keep getting the exact same thing every single time they put out a new scenario. We're going to end up in the same position. Where it's just going to be a half-baked scenario idea that isn't really doing anything. It's not really something I'm interested in. Hopefully New World doesn't follow the same path with their seasonal stuffs. Do I need to unlock this, or is this already unlocked? I hadn't unlocked that yet. Holy crap. Watching you play this definitely makes me miss real MMORPG. I think I might log in today. I mean, I like the game, but again, it has the same problems that other games have, is that their core interesting mechanical systems aren't good. War in New World should be this incredible experience, and it's not. Some of the PvP stuff or PvE stuff in New World is interesting. Um, the dungeons and the bosses and stuff have some interesting mechanics, and especially once you get into the mutations, things get really difficult, and that's very interesting. Um, so they've done a good job there. But the core of this game is your ability to own zones and have wars. And the wars in this game are just absolute trash. They also tried to have a really in-depth crafting system. But again, their crafting system is just like every other crafting system out there, which is completely uninnovated and is just a time sink where gathering is the majority of the work that you do with your artisan classes. And that's not terribly interesting. So the reason WoW keeps being the best game out there is everybody is basically just making WoW expansions. And WoW can already do that, right? Having dungeons with a boss with interesting mechanics at the end is WoW. And so if the best thing about your game is that you have dungeons with interesting boss mechanics, then I should just play WoW, especially if I've played WoW before, right? I don't play WoW because I never played WoW. And so I don't have a character on WoW that's already all stacked and, I don't have a community there that I've been playing with for a decade or anything like that. So I try a lot of new games. But the players who are really, really into MMOs play WoW. And if the best thing about your game is also the best thing about WoW, then there's no reason to play. But if y'all give me just a second here, I need to go use the restroom. I will be right back. See, I disagree. I think that WoW did all those things just as well as anybody else is doing them. But I don't think that those things are complete features. Now, the only complete feature that I think MMOs have is specifically their PvE dungeon content. And the reason MMOs have such good PvE dungeon content is because that stuff hasn't just existed since MMO times, right? That's just what RPGs are, is dungeon content, right? Every RPG you've ever played, even if it was a single player, is a series of dungeons and boss fights and, learning your character and upgrading your skills and learning how to use those skills to fight new bosses and interact with new mechanics. So that's not even a WoW thing. Story is the same way, right? Story is not an MMO thing. It's an RPG thing. And so we know how to make those things interesting because we've been doing it for like 50 fucking years. Even before computer games, right? This stuff goes all the way back to tabletop RPGs. So those things are, I think, very easy to get right. And if you get those things wrong, then you just shouldn't make video games. Combat is another thing that is extremely easy to get right because we've been doing it for a very, very long time, whether it's action combat, whether it's tab target, whatever it is. Monetization is difficult because games as a service are hard because you have to have consistent updates. You have to have a team working on new content. And you also have to have a team working on balancing and bug fixing. And, you have to have support for the players and all that stuff. So that's difficult. And I think, WoW, Final Fantasy, Guild Wars 2, New World even, I think all those games do a good job of not being overly monetized and not being overly pay to win, although I would prefer to see no pay to win in any of those games. But I think the real key things here are you need better PvP systems, and the only way you're ever going to do that is to hire some consultants that understand game theory and understand incentivization and can structure you a set of rules. Because right now, a lot of our PvP game experiences are trying to have the players build the experience, right? By having their interactions dictate how PvP goes. And you can't do that because we will always go the route of our most profitability. And sometimes, in actually almost all the time, the best way to do that is to pick on people weaker than you and take stuff from them. And so if you don't create a system of rules that stops that, your PvP system will be absolute trash. And your lowest skill players, which are your biggest group of players, will quit playing. Because the top 10% of players can easily keep the lower 90% of players subdued in a PvP environment like that. And so because you can't have open world skill-based matchmaking, because that's impossible, you have to create a system that incentivizes a certain type of play based on game theory. And so far, no game has done that. They just create an open world sandbox and they call it a sandbox and they say anything is possible. Well, that's bullshit. Anything isn't possible because a set of rules will get created. That set of rules is just going to get created by the top 10% of players. And it will always be a set of rules that is exploitative to the lower 90% of players that benefits the top 10% of players. Right? And kill on sight is usually how the rule set develops, because that top 10% of players can absolutely just kill you. So them being attacked by you isn't really a detriment to them because they'll just turn around and murk you. But you being attacked by them is always a detriment. So you fall into this situation where if you go out there, you have to fight. But if you fight, you're normally going to lose because the people who are out there the most are the top 10% of players. Right? They're the ones who are playing the most, and that's why they have the most skill, and that's why they have the best equipment. And so if you go out there and you aren't already one of those people, then you're at a severe disadvantage in a rule set that has been created by a group of players who already have an advantage over you. And that's really negative. So you need to create a system that has a set of rules that dictates that open world encounter. And you can't, it can't be a set of TOS rules. It has to be a set of in-game rules that prevent action that would have a negative impact on a large group of players and promote action that would have a more generally positive impact. And you need to base that on game theory. And, what would be the best outcome or the best option in most of those scenarios, and then you need to incentivize those actions so that if you do something outside of those actions, while you may get a temporary wealth gain, or you may get a temporary bonus to whatever it is you're doing, by going outside of those incentivized actions, those aren't going to be the standard. Those are going to be rarer cases. And you're going to have to be looking out for opportunities for those and looking out for when people may have an opportunity to do those things to you. But right now, this free-for-all, quote-unquote, sandbox, anything is possible it's the minimum viable product, right? Sandbox open world PvP is the minimum effort version of a PvP environment. And they're marketing it as this, super do anything, the world is your oyster thing, but it's not. And so PvP in WoW is pretty much the same thing, at least open world PvP. And then you've got arenas, and those arenas have rules, and arena PvP is actually interesting. But again, if you don't have some sort of matchmaking system, then that kind of devolves as well. So, and honestly, arena PvP systems just kind of get thrown in there, and they don't have interesting objectives. They don't have interesting zones. They're very, very boring because they're extremely repetitive, even if you're fighting different people, because the number of interactions you have is very limited. But if I go play 3v3 arena in this game, my only objective is to kill the other 3 players. There's no secondary or tertiary objective within that arena fight that makes for an extremely dynamic experience, because I'm just trying to kill the other player. It's why League of Legends is so good. Because even though it's only 5v5, right, there's only 10 players on the board. And even way back in the day when there weren't nearly as many characters to choose from, League of Legends was extremely interesting because there were secondary and tertiary objectives, right? You were pushing down lanes, you were trying to build up economy, you were killing the jungle mobs, you were killing the little bosses that spawned, you were taking down towers, you were fighting the enemies. There was all this other stuff going on that made for a really, really dynamic strategic environment. And that doesn't happen in MMO arena play, right? We get the minimum viable product, which is an arena, literally a circle in most games. And you just go in and you fight, and whoever wins, wins. Actually, Riot August made the point with League of Legends, where there's a reason that it's good that there are some characters that are less mechanically intensive to be good and to be viable. Because if everything was a Yasuo fight, right? If everybody just had to have Faker level mechanics in League of Legends, and whoever happened to be the most mechanically gifted player always won, then the game would ultimately be less fun because there's just one win condition. And it's just to be the most mechanically effective player. And So that would create a very bad situation, but that's exactly what we have in these 3v3 arena fights. Because there are no secondary or tertiary objectives, it comes down to your gear score, and it comes down to your mechanical skill. And so those are the only two things that determine victory in these games. There's no secondary strategy. There's no secondary objective. It's just go fight the enemy and be better than them. And so it's extremely frustrating because you can't overcome somebody who is better than you by doing something unexpected, because there is nothing else to do but fight them. Which is why open world PvP is still kind of interesting, because you have PvE mobs, you have the ability to run away. There are at least some options, but in the PvP arena there isn't. So we have the minimum viable product there. OPR is pretty close to its minimum viable product in this game. We have a single map. We don't have the PvE stuff, the tertiary objectives, because the secondary objectives are to kill players. The tertiary objective is to take the two big camps that spawn at certain times, and then the main objective is to take the control points. But the main objective control points are extremely linear, and so what ends up happening is you end up fighting over those control points one at a time, because the map isn't large enough for 20 people to be spreading out enough for us to be fighting over more than one of those objectives at a time. And because they're so linear, if you fight over an objective that isn't the one that's closest to you that needs to be fought over, then you're putting yourself at a very, very severe disadvantage where a smaller number of people can absolutely stop you. And so you end up disadvantaging both of your positions. Because if you fight, say you're trying to take the middle one, and then you break off a group of, say, 5 out of your 20 to go take the one closest to the enemy base. Well, 3 players can stop those 5 players because they respawn right there. They can just keep coming back and keep killing those players, keep fighting them. And for every one person they kill, that person has to run all the way back from your base, where you're just right there and you just keep coming. So, right, a small group of 3 can take that 5, and then you have 17 to fight the other 15. So by trying to use any sort of strategy outside of Zerg versus Zerging in there, you automatically put your entire group at a disadvantage. So it's the minimum viable product. Those things aren't spread out enough. They're not set up in a way so that the disparate points are equidistant from the starting points, but of different distances from each other. So if they were spread out across the middle, for example, then instead of, fighting over the middle one and then having to put yourself in a disadvantaged position on the far one, you could put yourself in a position on maybe one to the left and one to the right. And so then, even if your entire enemy group captures in the center, they then have to split up to go try and stop you from capturing in both of those. Or maybe they stay together and go try and stop you from capturing one of them, but then you're all the way on the other side, and they can't stop you from capturing that far left one, and then you move into the center, and then they have to move through or around you, which makes them take a longer path to get back to back cap you on the one that you already capped while you're recapping the one in the center. So either they have to fight you over that one in the center or go try and back cap you. Now, they could try and back cap you with a smaller group. Maybe a couple of people got killed and they're leaving their base, and so now they're going to back cap you on that left side while you're in the middle side, fighting the majority of their forces, but all those forces have to do is hold that position. They don't actually have to take that position from you, so you find yourself now in a disadvantaged position. And so there's significantly more dynamics to what can go on if you just spread those 3 capture points out across the middle and change that dynamic. Because right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, this is sort of your home base, right? So you're always going to have control over this one, but that's not true. Because in the straight line system that they have right now, you find yourself in a position where you're always fighting the entirety of their group. So it again, just like that 3v3 arena, becomes a system of, okay, well, they're better than me, so we lose. And it just, again, becomes a mechanic fight not a strategy fight, because you sort of fall away from the remainder of those interesting mechanics, because there's only one place to be fighting over. So there's really only one way to come to a conclusion of the fight. So again, you have the minimum viable product. And that's the case with Throne and Liberty, right? All of those combat areas in Throne and Liberty is the minimum viable product, right? It's just an open world spot with a boss in it. It's, probably the best PvP in that game is the PvP open world events. And I don't even mean the guild world events. I mean the open world events that put you on a random team. And then you go fight with a random team to complete objectives of a PvP event or a PvE event with PvP active. I think that's probably the best PvP system in that game. It's really interesting. It's really dynamic. There's tons of objectives to be going on in there. Right? You have to kill people. You have to kill the PvE enemies. You have to be turning stuff in. You have to be keeping track of what's being turned in, because a lot of those events have things where if you're the last person to turn in for one of the objectives, then you get a bonus. And so you want that bonus for yourself and for your team. And so you have to be keeping track of how close that area is to being finished. There's just a ton of stuff that goes on in those open world PvP events, but the rewards that you get from them are almost useless. And so you don't end up doing it very often, because it's more important to get together with your team and go stand in a tiny little arena with 100 people and just Zerg versus Zerg over a boss, or over one of those capture stones or whatever, boon stones. There you go. And they're extremely small, and it just ends up being a clash of gear scores and team compositions. There's no additional strategy behind it. There's no secondary or tertiary objectives. It's stand on the boonstone, like all your skills in the direction of the other team. And that's it. So it's a minimum viable product. All the time. Everything is a minimum viable product. We're not innovating. We're not doing anything. Crafting systems, gathering systems, minimum viable products. Right? This is the crafting system in New World. This is 100% of the crafting system. Right? 100% of the time that I spend crafting items is absorbed by my gathering resources. I am chopping down a tree. I am a hero tier character in this world, right? If I go into town, every single civilian in that town is absolutely nothing on a power scale compared to me, right? I am a god among these civilians. And yet, they're not out here chopping trees. I'm out here chopping a tree down to get the lowest tier of wood. And the reason that exists is because something has to absorb time in the crafting system. And the rest of the crafting system is this. It's just a menu, right? I have my resources. I refine them because apparently we need more menus to go through. So I have all of these non-refined resources. I'm going to go into a menu and click a couple of buttons to refine those resources into the next tier of resource, which will take absolutely no player time. And I just walk up to the station, click a couple of buttons. You're talking seconds to refine thousands of materials. And then I'm going to go into another menu. I'm going to click some more buttons. And I'm going to make an item. And RNG is going to tell me whether or not that item is actually useful. So I've got a ton of RNG. And if I want to mitigate that RNG, there is some additional gathering that I can do. I can go out here into the sands, right? And I can go run around looking for chests out here that give me resources that allow me to stop that RNG from occurring and use some other different items to force certain perks and attributes on my gear so that I can guarantee I get that item. But I'm still utilizing ultimately the same amount of time. And that's the resource that matters, right? It's all about player time because it's a player-driven economy. The only thing that actually has value in this game is the amount of time a player spends doing something. And that's why you'll see, for example, Albion Online is a really good example of this. It doesn't really matter what you do in Albion Online to make currency from a PvE perspective. Every PvE option, when you do it at the highest level, right, when you max out your potential for gathering, when you max out your potential for doing open world or solo dungeons, when you max out your potential for doing hardcore dungeons or hardcore expeditions, all of those things earn you approximately the same amount of currency per hour, because the players in the game understand how long it takes to do those things. And so everything just kind of equalizes, right? You're spending X amount of time, you're going to end up making X amount of currency when you do it at the highest level. And so that's the same thing here. Because there's no skill expression in most of PvE, because PvE is extremely repetitive, you can solve the equation, right? It might have taken me a really long time to understand that 2 + 2 = 4 the first time, but there's no skill expression in memorizing that 2 + 2 = 4, and then every time somebody asks you that question saying, oh, the answer is 4, right? It's not calculus, for example, where maybe I'm dealing with equations I've never seen before. I'm dealing with an equation that I know the answer to. And there aren't enough variety of equations for me to not be able to memorize the answer to every equation, right? It's not like mathematics in real life where there's basically an infinite number of equations, and I couldn't possibly understand or remember every answer to every equation. And so instead I have to learn the tools to actually go through and complete the equations, right? There's some skill expression there. And if there were an infinite number of potential PvE encounters with an infinite number of, enemy skills and, enemy rotations and stuff like that, then you would run into the problem where skill expression would matter. Well, not the problem. You would run into the situation where skill expression would matter. But because we have this minimum viable product, that's not the case. And so if you're going to have that, you might as well just play the game that everybody's been playing for decades. So I don't think it's difficult to beat WoW at all. You just have to stop giving the minimum viable product. I mean, it's not difficult in any way. And you only have to do it to one of those things, right? If you're arena PvP, and honestly, you could do it by completely ripping off other existing games. For example, League of Legends is one of the greatest PvP experiences in the world. If instead of having just a basic 3v3 arena, you literally ripped off League of Legends PvP and just put it into a game, right? It's an MMO, I'm running around, I'm my character, I do all the things, and then sometimes I go queue up for some PvP and I go basically play League of Legends, maybe in a third-person view instead of an isometric view, with my character. You equalize item levels, and then you set up a system where you gain currency while you play, and then you go buy perks for your equipment while you're in the PvP system, and they're only PvP perks, right? They only exist for that particular combat. You level up through a different series of levels, or maybe even you already have a system with your weapon masteries, so maybe you gain 10 weapon masteries instead of 20, so that you can go through and pick your skills and tier up your skills, right? You only need 9, so maybe you have these 9 and then you have the 10th one is these. So instead of all this secondary stuff out here, you're only concerned with the skills and their skill lines, and then you pick one side, either the leadership or the defensive formation, whatever you're going to do for that particular fight. So you get 10 points instead of 20. You go through those 10 points as you go through this combat. And that's how your character sort of changes throughout the combat. You have your perk system for your items already. So, maybe I just go in there and when the fight starts, I'm in a generic helmet and I can buy perks for the different gear pieces, for my weapon, for whatever. And that's how you sort of do your itemization, how you spend currency that you're earning. And then you literally just go through and literally play League of Legends. Right? It's just a MOBA PvP. That would be infinitely more interesting than the PvP systems we have, the arena PvP systems we have now. Instead of 3v3, you need a 5v5. Ooh, we need 2 more players, or 4 more players, sorry, per fight. And I mean, that's incredibly engaging. It has secondary and tertiary objectives. It has ways to express strategy over skill. It has tons of different stuff. And the crafting system is the same way. I mean, I've been harping on it forever. If you just copy a roguelite like Slay the Spire and make that your crafting system, then it changes everything about your artisan skills. There's no more gathering trees. There's no more hero tier players running around chopping down aged wood. Because if you had an actual system for crafting, instead of just the minimum viable product of a menu, and I actually had to play through, and there was actually some skill expression, and maybe that skill expression is different than the skill expression of your main game, right? Like we're playing a third-person action combat RPG game right now, right? So there's certain skills that are expressed there. So if instead your crafting system was a turn-based tactics RPG that you did, or, was Slay the Spire, a deck builder, or was anything, literally any other system for any other skill expression, then you end up with players who are the best at PvP, who rely on players who are the best at crafting to make them the best gear. Now you have interpersonal socialization going on. Because I can't just do everything for myself right now. If I'm the best at this system right here, if I'm the best at playing this third-person action combat, then I'm also the best at running around gathering chests. I'm also the best at beating dungeons. I'm also the best at doing all of these other things that require very much the same skill expression. So I have the best gear. I am the best in the entire game, and I have no need to interact with anybody else because I can just literally go do everything by myself. So if you want to enforce interpersonal interaction, then you have to create systems that express different skills so that the best of the best have to interact with other people who are the best. And those are not minimum viable products. And so they would have legitimate impact. They would bring players in, right? If I want to play a game like Slay the Spire, I can just go play Slay the Spire, that's true. But if I'm good at Slay the Spire and I really like it, then I could come play New World and craft in New World and have an impact on New World by playing the game that I really enjoy, by playing Slay the Spire. By crafting really cool weapons. And then I have even a new objective, because right now Slay the Spire is just about beating Slay the Spire. But if I was able to do it as a crafting system inside of an MMORPG game, then I have to interact with people who want those items. I have to identify exactly what they want. I have to structure the upcoming run of whatever my crafting system is to best give me the ability to give them specifically the item I want. And then not only do I have to beat the game, but I have to beat the game by going through the nodes that are going to give me bonuses to the stats that I want in the order and magnitudes that I want those bonuses to occur. So now I've even added another set of parameters to victory in the game that I really like, which makes it even more difficult. and I'm having this wonderful impact on this other world around me. MMOs need to stop being just one game because they are ecosystems, right? This is a place where people spend a lot of time. And if you could give them other stuff to do inside of that, where everything that you do in the game doesn't follow the same set of rules, you would be able to keep players playing a lot longer for a lot more time during individual days. Right now, I mean, we literally just have the minimum viable product over and over and over and over again. And it's getting easier and easier to deliver that product too. Because game engines like Unreal Engine 5 do a lot of this for us already, right? If you start up a new project in Unreal Engine 5, your character already does this, right? This is done for you. Your character can already do this. There are some animations and things that you're going to have to add, right? Like these weapon attack animations aren't inherently in there. But especially if you're making like an FPS, a first-person shooter, you're zooming in, you're firing, all of that stuff just already exists when you open up the project. So if you're not needing to innovate on that at all, because it already exists in the game, because that's just part of the engine, then you need to be innovating on something else. Because you get the minimum viable product right out of the box, right? You start up an Unreal Engine 5 environment, and it's already a playable video game. It's not very good, right? There's nothing to look at. It's already a playable video game. So, slapping a coat of paint on that and then shipping it for $60 is kind of garbage. And I don't want to diminish. I'm sort of being deductive of game development, because the people out there who do the art for these trees are talented. The people out here who do the animations for this are talented. The people who are writing the code that sets things up so that you can have all these different skills and all these different perks and setting up all the tags required for making sure that everything interacts the right way, right? They're all very talented people. I'm not trying to shit all over game developers. Primarily, my problem is that, and I think it's corporatization. I think it's, large publishers and, rich investors and stuff like that that are driving these people to push these games out in a minimum viable content state because it makes them money. And if they can, if they can spend a couple of years putting out a game that's in a minimum viable state and sell that game for $60 and then immediately roll into the next one, then they feel like they're making more money. They are making more money. And then after that, it's just cosmetics, right? You just push out cosmetic packs, let people buy cosmetics, which is exactly what Once Human's doing, which is exactly what New World does, which is exactly what WoW does. They put out their expansions instead of putting out new games. But then they're just putting out cosmetics, they're putting out mounts, they're putting out things that don't actually have an impact on the game, but have an impact on their bottom line. And so that's what gaming, and specifically gaming as a service, has become, is pretty up the minimum viable product as much as possible, and then ship it. And then monetize it. And I'm just one dude, right, who's sitting around playing video games. Granted, I've sat around and played video games a lot, but I'm not particularly creative. I wouldn't even suggest that I'm the first person to have thought of making a crafting system that is similar to a roguelite. I'm not the first person. I want to, Quizza, and I will at some point. I'm really bad at video editing, though, and I get sort of paralyzed by the idea of, needing to record specific footage and then writing a script, and that's a lot of different skills that maybe I don't really have. So every time I sit down to maybe try and see about doing something about that, I just kind of get overwhelmed and paralyzed by the whole system. Oop. But yes, I do want to make a full video on it. But also I like just chatting about it. Right? I like speaking about it in the moment. I'm not a very prepared person, generally. And I don't necessarily enjoy preparing. I just like to vomit ideas. But, like I said, I mean, I'm definitely not the first or even the most capable person who have had these ideas. And I think the only reason that these things don't already exist is because the money interest doesn't line up with the creative interest. And so we're just going to keep getting minimum viable products. Even when people have creative ideas for systems, I think the best example of this is probably Path of Exile. Always really loved Path of Exile because, every season they have a new mechanic for their maps and stuff like that. And early on, they seemed really, really creative. But as we've gotten further and further through Path of Exile, and as we've played that game for longer and longer, it started to become apparent that every one of their systems sort of follows the same scenario of come up with an interesting way to make more enemies appear. Or come up with an interesting way to make specific enemies stronger. And I get it. One day you'll be ready to make it. Oh, no worries. Yeah, I mean, I'll get it made at some point. I've been making little pokes at it, little stabs at it. Getting a little bit done here and there. A lot of what is going on is just me trying to learn, because I don't want to put the video out and not have it be good. Because I think the content, right, the concept of the video is very good. But if the video itself is trash, then the concept doesn't matter because nobody will watch it. So, I mean, maybe I should spend some time putting out some sort of lower tier concept videos, get my experience up, instead of just trying to swing for the fences with what I think is probably the most important video I will make. I don't know. Don't know at all. I also think I'm limited by the fact that I don't want to put my face on there. I hope that's true. And so because I don't want to put my face up, a lot of the gaming videos that talk about systems and, the future of games that are coming out, a lot of that stuff is all talking head type stuff with a little bit of stuff going on in the background. And I don't want to put my face on there. I want to get a webcam. So I can't really talking head because I'm not going to be putting my head on there. So I need to come up with some interesting video to put that is relevant to what I'm saying. So instead of people watching me be animated about what I'm talking about, there will be something associated with what's going on actively happening on the screen, which I think is considerably more difficult because in a lot of those talking head videos, all they have to do is they show themselves and then they cut to a very small section of content that shows what they're talking about. Also, most people listen to it while working, something else like myself. That's fair. That's fair. I guess maybe I'm putting some of my bias because I actually watch the videos when I watch them, but that's because I spend all of my time on my computer and I don't really do anything else. So, yeah, I mean, I need to find something. I need to get better at figuring out what visuals go with the audio. And I need to get better at understanding sort of the length of those. And maybe, honestly, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, these are all really good questions and really good comments, Quizza, because it's making me critically think about this a little. Maybe the best answer will be to just get a lot of the footage that I think that I'm going to need, right? Like I talk about gathering being super boring and stupid. And so maybe I should just record like a really long gathering montage and just go gather, like for an hour, just record an hour of me gathering. And then I can have that hour and, you know, I could break it down where, you know, I could cut everything out except for the last hit. Or I can just, you know, play a clip of the gathering in its entirety to make a point. You know, I could do a whole bunch of stuff like that because I'm not going to need an hour of footage. So if I have an hour, then I can play with it. And maybe that'll be the best option. Hey, Party Wizard with the Prime for 2 months. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Giggity indeed. Thank you very much, Party Wizard. But, yeah, so maybe I should just overdo it. That's actually a really good point. And that actually gives me a lot of motivation. Because I can grind. I can do way more than is necessary. That's not a problem. And then I can find the perfect spot, honestly. And I should have thought of this before because it's a lot like making my thumbnails and stuff. All the images that are all the backgrounds for my thumbnails are all much larger images that I found a spot that I thought was good and I cut it down. I should have applied that same reasoning to editing. Why would you not just get way more than you need and then cut it down? It's so much easier to trim the fat than it is to try and confine yourself to a very specific set of parameters, set of time constraints. Yeah. Not sure what editing software you use, but DaVinci Resolve is free and solid. Learning curve is a little bit rough. So right now I'm just using CapCut. It's really, really basic because my videos have always been really, really basic. I don't know what I don't know, I guess. So I don't know what tools I might need that DaVinci might have that I don't get out of CapCut. But I probably should try and find something that's a little more powerful. better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So maybe I'll look into that. Maybe I'll look into that. It's cold as hell here. Oh my god. Freezing my nerds off. I use DaVinci a lot since I edit films. Definitely more flexible than CapCut. Yeah, how does it run though? So CapCut actually kind of runs like garbage. I end up waiting around a lot, and maybe that's just the way things are. You know, when you're moving large files and stuff, maybe my lack of experience with video editing makes me think that things should be running smoother than they actually are, and that sometimes you just have to wait, and that's just the way it is. I don't know. I am not a very patient person, though. Gets me into trouble sometimes. We're gonna take all these coins that I've gotten here back out so that we save them. Better not be a player shooting at me. I'll get off this horse and come kick your ass. Runs real smooth depending on what you're trying to render. It might take a minute, but that depends on your hardware. Yeah, well, and that's kind of my problem, is my hardware is pretty limited. But probably patience is just the issue. You know, I click a button and I want it to immediately do the thing. I'm sure sometimes there's just stuff going on and I need to calm my ass down. Gee, we're up to 700 already today. We've only been playing for about 2 hours. We are getting a whole lot of coins here. Even though we've been attacked a time or two. Actually, I think I'm going to go step back out of the zone here. I need to fill up my water bottle and get something to eat. I'm getting kind of hungry. Alright, I'm going to hang out here for a second while I go get something to eat. I'll be right back. Badge and colors. You mean on Twitch? I don't know anything about Twitch. Don't know nothing. Hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to change it? I will. At least I think I can. We'll make it some ostentatious color. Hmm. Delicious. Let's get back out there. Let's do some more of the thing. Free for all PvP. So while I was making my food, my older brother came by. And he told me that him and his partner for TFT Double Up have just reached top 10 in the region, the NA region, in Double Up on TFT, which is fucking insane. I honestly can't even believe that my older brother His top 10 in a video game. I mean, he's always been good at TFT. He's always been... I think he's managed to make Master in every single season in solo play since TFT started, which is impressive. TFT is Teamfight Tactics. It's the auto battler for League of Legends. It's an interesting game mode. I'm not particularly good at it, and I don't particularly enjoy it. But he's always really enjoyed it. When he was streaming years and years ago, he did a little streaming of his own and ended up not liking streaming, but that was the game he was streaming. Did very well. He was even coaching for a little while. But yeah, I mean, millions of games have already gotten played by thousands and thousands of players. Hundreds of thousands of players, honestly. Probably. Maybe 100,000 players. That's probably somewhere between 50 and 100,000 players. There have already been like 10 million games played. For this season, I believe. But it is quite the feat. I wish that I was as good at video games as my two brothers are. They are both significantly more talented than I am at clicking the buttons. Well, that's not true. My older brother is more talented than I am at strategy. My little brother is more talented at clicking the buttons. Way back in the day, I don't know, season 4 or 5 maybe? For League of Legends. I don't know what season we're on this season. But my little brother probably could have been a professional League of Legends player. He was outstandingly good. Thankfully, though, the gift I was given was Gab. So instead of being super good at video games, I'm just super good at talking about video games, which is very much going to help me in my chosen profession. Because while it would be super cool to like play on a professional team or something like that, I would much prefer to do this. Play video games decently well and to talk about them. This zone is fairly interesting. There's a lot of verticality to this region, which makes it feel a lot larger than it is. I mean, it's only a very small section of a single zone. And honestly, running across it doesn't take all that long. But because it's sort of maze-like, and because it's got a lot of verticality to it, it honestly stretches it out a lot. It makes it fairly interesting and fairly fun to go through. And again, that's another one of those things that we've always been talking about, is the moment-to-moment gameplay. If I could get out of my head a little bit about the systems of these games, like I did when I first started playing Once Human, because Once Human was really a new game to me. And so everything was really new, and just experiencing everything took me out of the sort of analytical mindset that I normally have. And so I wasn't focusing nearly as much on the things that I found wrong with the game. And it made my play experience there much, much better, because the moment-to-moment gameplay of games like this is really interesting. The moment-to-moment gameplay of Once Human is really fun and really interesting. And so maybe I should try and work a little bit on just enjoying that, because fighting this enemy is fairly entertaining. Is it sort of the same series of buttons that I hit for every single one of those enemies? Absolutely. Is it difficult? Not really. But it is fun to know that I built this character, and that the character has the ability to do the things that it does because of the choices I've made. And doing those things and making those choices moment to moment is very interesting. The combat of this game has enough strategy in it that, you know, I feel like I'm constantly making decisions. I'm not just relying on muscle memory to determine when I hit buttons and in what order. And so that is definitely a big bonus for this game and a lot of games like it. And that's something that games like this sort of take from first-person shooters, right? Because shooter games are very, very focused on moment-to-moment gameplay. They have almost no other thoughts going on when you play a shooter. But it's all about, what am I doing right now? And what do I need to be doing next? You know, am I peeking this corner? How am I peeking this corner? What information do I know about the world as it stands right this moment? And that's very fun. I like it a lot. That is absolutely something that has to be true of a video game. The moment-to-moment gameplay has to be engaging. And New World does do a very good job. Even moment-to-moment gameplay in this game that isn't combat associated, right? Just walking around and exploring the world feels very good as well. Climbing up things. One of the things that we used to have the most fun doing was trying to get to areas that you weren't necessarily supposed to be able to get to in ways that you weren't supposed to be able to get there. So, climbing up the sides of mountains, jumping up the sides of things. There's a thing in this game called like shield climbing or block climbing. It works best if you have a shield, but if you pull your shield out and you jump up a really vertical surface, as you go to block, something changes about your hitbox that makes it possible to climb up a more sheer surface. And that's really fun. And it makes exploration quite entertaining. So I really like that about this game. I like that about most MMOs. I think it's why most MMOs have a lot of success early on and sort of die off, is because the exploration part of the game is always really entertaining because it is just moment-to-moment gameplay. Exploring the world, finding its secrets. Getting to places maybe nobody else has been. These things are just very interesting. I think we've gotten enough of those for now. Let's go back in and do another expedition for the day. Get up that random. Honestly, it's probably a little bit why I'm so aggravated with the people I keep playing with in these expeditions, is they've explored them already, so they know them, and it's inhibiting my ability to explore them. I should probably try and find some friends who either want to take the dungeons slower or maybe haven't done the dungeons themselves yet either, and want to do them a little bit slowly so I can kind of run around and explore and create my mental map, because it's a little bit frustrating not to be able to do that. We'll see. All right. Which map are we going in? Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? Ooh, I've never been in this one.
I've been so focused.
At least I don't think I've been in this one. The Savage Divide. Hey, there we go. Let's get this done here. Okay. Let's see how it works now. Interesting. This God mode person is obscenely strong. They were not kidding when they called themselves God mode. Look at that DPS. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I want to be that strong one day. I was about to say, there's surely going to be some loot in there. There was a boss in there. But I got it. I got it. Incendior. I'm just gonna follow this God mode person because they obviously know what they're doing. And I have never played this dungeon before. Oh, there's another one. That I apparently am unable to climb up to. Do I have to go around to it? Must be. We down here fighting. Cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. There wasn't another globe over there, like there was last time. Must be down this way. Spurian flail. Ooh. What in the hell is that hanging off of that person? Met you on somebody's island. Can I not even go up there and fight those? That's annoying. Ooh. There's a big old mammoth. What's up, big fella? The rocks are bouncing. It's only mostly creepy. I think this god mode person is probably rocking full 725 gear. I don't even know why they're doing dungeons anymore. We're still missing one. Okay, guess we're fighting the boss without one of our players. That's fine. Oh, very well done. Good job, everyone. Guess we go out the way we came in. And we get our little supply stockpile. Very nice. Okay. I got exploded by the poison. An ice mammoth. I thought the Ice Age is what killed the mammoths. And armored Drake. I actually really love the enemy models in this game. The graphics and the sound design in this game are so fucking good. So fucking good. That is definitely somewhere in this game where we did not get the minimum viable product. The graphics and the sound quality of New World are honestly probably the best in the genre. Not probably, they definitely are the best in the genre by a fairly significant margin. Did we go the wrong way or something? I feel like this is the right way. Okay, this dungeon is super weird because you keep going back to the same places to do things, and then there keep being more enemies. I don't like it. Beta. Holy poop. Oh, there's another orb. I didn't even see it there. Good job, God Mode. Glad you were here. Making my life way easier. He just dropped his trunk on me. This is a big old woolly mammoth. Is there somebody up there riding him? No, he's just got like some weird crystal thing on his back. Honestly, this enemy looks so cool. This must be from the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion. And I have to admit, the graphics on the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion are outrageously good. Nicely done. That was the entire expedition. Okay. Cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Fantastic job. Let's take a look at the spoils of victory. First, let's get rid of all this purple and blue garbage. The only purples that are acceptable are shields, because they can't be legendary as far as I can tell. Let's take a look here. Freedom Enchanted Ward Health with 30 Constitution. I might just try and sell that. That's decent. Bind on pickup, never mind. Don't need it. Shirking Lightning, Empowering Whirling Blade, keenly empowered. So the reason these things that have shirking and a damage type on them are important is because they add damage. So that's a 25%, well, 29% base damage boost, which is pretty big. Hesperian Flail of the Soldier. Vicious, Mending Vortex, Life Stealing. I don't think Vortex is a flail skill. But I guess it would have to be, wouldn't it? Yeah, because it's a flail. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. Every 2 hits with the Vortex will heal you for 44% of the base weapon damage. Max stacks 1. Okay. That's actually probably pretty good. Plus lifesteal. I bet you that's pretty useful. And then the Incendior. Mortar Charge, Keenly Jagged, Vicious. Interesting. Don't want it though. And get rid of that. Cool, cool. And then we bounce. Character. My shield and flail got a bonus. Do I want to go for Bastion or do I want to go for this? Honestly, I don't think it really matters right this moment. I kind of like that though. Gain some stamina. That's pretty good. My PvP track is done. That's nice. Champion's Tower Shield. Some dark matter and a scheming conscript's long sword of the soldier. 36 strength, keen, vicious, and empowering whirling blade. Wow. So that's a really good sword. Also, super cool skin. So whether I use this sword or not, we do have a transmog system now, right? Can I transmog this thing? Because that's wicked as hell. Yeah, I can get behind that. And then we're gonna complete this track, right? Because I don't need. Well, actually, we'll go ahead and buy this, and we'll buy that, and we're almost to the next checkpoint. All right, and a new achievement. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is getting too cold here. My hands are starting to lock up because my arthritis plus the cold is not really working. So I think we're going to call that for the day. We'll be back tomorrow. It's actually supposed to warm up tomorrow, mercifully. Tomorrow and the next day. A little bit. And hopefully, by then, we get our heater pump or our heater motor. And I can get things fixed. Before it goes back down to 18 degrees again on Thursday. Yeah. So I'll be back tomorrow for another stream. Probably at an irregular time again. I've been waking up a little later in the day. I've been sleeping a little further into the day. So I don't know. We'll be thinking of probably a new time to be streaming. Although I do like streaming in the middle of the day, my most awake time tends to be at night, so I might start streaming later in the evening. I really don't know. We'll be seeing. But yeah, thanks for everybody coming by, saying what's up, hanging out in the chat, asking good questions, making me really think about stuff, which was important. So